welcome to the Red Barrels podcast. It's episode 39, comrades. We did it. Ed's loving it. Look, oh man, you're not seeing our Discord windows. He is just basking in the glory of episode 39, as you should be, listener. Everyone is. I think everyone is. Even people aren't listening. They're just receiving the glow that's suffusing into the world more generally for episode 39. I'm Alex. I'm loving it. Who else is here and loving it too?
Me, so freely. Sofie. I'm also loving it. I'm very enthusiastic to be here. Speaking of
she's
elocution.
so excited. She's
Wow.
so excited.
I'm so excited. I
fallen
can't
into
even
speaking in
speak.
tongues.
Who else is here?
Yeah, I'm Ed. Ed is here. Thank you so much for joining us
Whoa.
once again. Episode 39.
Woo!
And yes, Sophie did give us some elocution lessons just before this episode, so it's
I
really paid off for her
did.
already.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Grown.
That's the only mistake we'll make in this podcast. Don't you worry. Everything else will be 100% verified, correct, true, and also excellent.
Also-
So thank you for joining us.
Also, that was the first episode, the first mistake. There you go. We just made another one. It's already spreading. It's already
Wow.
spreading.
So
two
really, all
mistakes now,
here on in
and they're
are
all
Sophie's
Sophie's
fault, is what
It's
we're
all
saying.
Sophie's fault.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Thanks,
Zoe.
Soph.
What?
Thanks.
I've had a tough week. I don't deserve this.
Well,
That's true.
I am
forgive
sorry.
you.
I'm sorry about that, but you have
Thanks.
cursed the podcast forever.
You've
That's
cursed
how
the
it worked out.
podcast forever.
Wait, and if you've cursed it and you've cursed it, they offset. So we're uncursed.
No.
Hooray!
Mine was a continuation of the curse. The curse. There is
that's
no
how it works,
uncursing.
Alex. We're uncursed.
That's how it works, Alex.
Permanent
That's
decline,
what-
baby.
That's how it works,
No.
Alex. Is uncursed.
Alex doesn't know. Alex doesn't know.
Alex
Right.
doesn't know about curses. So
Alright,
we're
fine.
uncursed.
All right, fine. Anyway, this is a games episode. Last episode was news with our
Whee!
incredible interview with
Yippee.
Spring from the IWGB. We've got a banger of an episode. I'm going to spoil it right now. The final game we're talking about today, it's going to be Disco Elysium. That's right. We're finally doing it. One of us has finally played Disco Elysium. I mean, we've all played Disco Elysium before, but this time we're going to talk about it for reasons that will become clear. And you might be able to determine anyway. But before that, before you get to your juicy dessert, you've got to eat your vegetables. By which I mean, Ed's going to talk now.
Wow. Wow. Jeez. Man, first he does an unsanctioned Disco Elysium review, and now this?
That's
I'm
so
really not going to
funny.
stand for this.
I make my own sanctions.
Well- Jesus. Jeez Louise. I am going to be covering today the 2025 episodic adventure game from Ad Hoc Studios, Dispatch.
Ed, can I first ask,
Mm.
is this the most recent game you've ever talked about on Red Barrels? I think it is.
It's the most recent, as in it's the latest that's come out now. I don't think it's the shortest gap between a game coming out and me covering it, though. I think Split Fiction, for example,
That's
was
true,
quicker.
that's true. And also we did talk about Silk Song as well. So, all right,
Yeah.
but it's...
that is true. We talked about that like the day after it came
Exactly.
out.
So,
yeah. So no, Alex, it's not.
all right. But it's against type. I like to see it. I like to see a
Yeah,
bit
I've
of
been-
variety.
I've been throwing some newer ones in there recently, just spicing things up.
That's true.
So this is, although this isn't my first review of a new game, this is Ad Hoc Studios' first game. But the creative team that make up the studio are mainly former Telltale employees. They founded this studio after Telltale's collapse in 2018. Obviously, the Telltale has been sort of semi-resurrected in some way since then, but we don't talk about that. So that means that this game is very much in the mold of the classic Telltale games like Walking Dead or The Life Among Us. And it occupies the space between a video game and a TV show. These games are released episodically. Dispatch specifically was released in 8 episodes, 2 being released each week. And the main thing that you're doing is you're basically watching an episode of TV, but every so often you have to decide what the main character does or says next from a list of 2 or 3 options. And you have to pick, in this game, you have to pick in a certain amount of time. There's a little timer sort of counting down for you to respond, which makes you respond more instinctively. There are quick time events that you can have on or off during the game. I personally played with them off. My feeling was if they're so dispensable that you're at the start, they let you put them on or off, then I didn't think much was to be gained by having them on. And this is my first proper playthrough of a Telltale style game, really. I did a little bit of the first episode of The Walking Dead when that came out, but that's kind of it. So, yeah, I'm going to see if I like this style of game. So in this game, you play as Robert Robertson III, who in the prologue of the game we see is a superhero called Mecha Man. He's like an Iron Man type of guy flying around in a mech suit fighting crime. But in this prologue, his suit gets damaged, probably beyond repair, by a villain known as Shroud, leaving Robert unable to be Mecha Man any longer, and he announces his retirement to the world. Shortly after that, he's approached by a superhero called Blonde Blazer, who recruits him to work at the Superhero Dispatch Network, or SDN. SDN is like a private emergency services which subscribers can call and be sent a superhero to help them with their particular emergency. So Robert is going to be a dispatcher for SDN, and this dispatching is like the second gameplay element alongside the first one, which is the making decisions for your characters during the narrative thing. So during this dispatching gameplay element, you're looking at a map of an area and calls come in that then appear on the map. The calls, you get a brief summary of what the situation is that they're calling about, and you have to assign one of your heroes, or sometimes more than one if you want, to do that task. So you're going to pick the ones that you think are best suited to that task. After you've chosen, it will then tell you basically how good a job you did. You'll get a certain percentage of how well the skills of the people you chose matched up to the task, which gives you a certain % chance of succeeding at the task. And then your heroes come back to base and they sort of are on cooldown for a little bit. The stats of the heroes include things like mobility, strength, charisma, and as you go through the game, if you succeed, you get points you can spend increasing their stats. Yeah, and this was a good gameplay loop. I enjoyed it. The characters are talking most of the time as it goes on, and the dialogue is good at helping you understand the characters. And each of the characters are very distinct. I'll talk a lot more about the characters later. But there's also these occasional little hacking mini games that are a part of this as well, which are also fine. Like this whole gameplay loop, I would say takes up. I haven't checked this, but my instinct is maybe 40% of your time with the game. So it's certainly not the main thing that you're doing. This isn't like the game, but this is quite a prominent mini game within the game. And it's the main bit of gameplay aside from the narrative aspect. And yeah, as the game goes on, this little mini game thing gets harder. You get more calls coming in at once, making it harder to juggle which heroes you send out. And it's got enough depth to it to be a good part of a wider experience, but I don't think it would be very fun by itself as a game. So it's like more than serviceable. It's good. It's good. But let's put that to one side and get back to the actual meat of the game, the actual heart of the game, and that's the narrative, and that's the characters especially. I'm going to talk through some of the characters that stand out to give you sort of an insight into what the game is actually interested in. I mean, I've already mentioned Blonde Blazer in passing. She's effectively your manager at SDN. She's kind of like a Superman tier hero. She wears a necklace that transforms her into a super strong flying kind of hero. I'll get back to her even more in a minute. There's also her male counterpart and indeed her boyfriend at the start of the game, Phenomenon Man. I don't know how you say it. But exactly. But he on the surface is even more Superman adjacent. But early in the game, I guess mild spoilers for the first maybe 2 episodes of Dispatch, I would say, Blonde Blazer breaks up with him and he becomes a depressed wreck. So that's a shame. On the other hand, there's also a character called Waterboy. He's a kind of lanky, slightly nervous, but sweet guy who is the janitor at SDN. He kind of reminds me of Moist from Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, if you guys remember that at all. Although his powers are much more useful than that. Sophie's giving me a look like she definitely doesn't remember Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, and that's okay.
You're a big Buffy fan. I'm surprised you don't know about it.
Well, she's a new Buffy fan, though.
Yeah, I only watched Buffy for the first time last year.
Oh, well. It's a thing Joss Whedon made, like, during some writer's strike. And it was like
Joss
one
Whedon
thing.
sucks.
Yeah, I know. But, like, he did Buffy, so it's quite a crossover.
Yeah, he still sucks. He's like arguably the worst part of Buffy.
I'm not defending Joss Whedon. I'm just saying I'm surprised you haven't heard of it. That's all.
Stop defending Joss Whedon. God.
In addition to those characters, there's a guy called Chase. He's a friend of your late father's. He used to be a superhero known as Trackstar. He's a classic speedster kind of guy. But unfortunately, he found that while he can move 50 times faster than a normal person, it also made him age 50 times faster while he was doing it. So despite him only being about 40, he looks like an old man. And he's kind of like a foul-mouthed mentor figure for your character. There's also Royd. He's a very strong, very smart, but like charmingly laid-back man that you befriend early on. And he spends the game trying to rebuild the mech man suit. And he's definitely one of my favorites. He was very, very likable. I really enjoyed him. So those are kind of like the side characters in a way. I've also mentioned that Robert is dispatching a group of heroes, and those are all characters in their own right. To be more specific, though, the heroes you're dispatching are all recovering villains, like some kind of Suicide Squad, called the Z Team. Or the Z Team, if you want to be UK about it, which you know I do.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
They've been assigned to work at SDN as part of a rehabilitation program. And initially it consists of 8 people plus Robert. There's Punch Up, he's an Irish strongman who made a deal with a sorceress to give him the strength of 10 men, but he had to be half the height of a normal man. There's Malevola, who's a demon who wields a massive sword and create portals and can steal people's life force. There's Gollum, who's basically like Clayface from Batman. There's Prism, who's a pop star who can create illusions and especially likes to do multiple versions of herself. There's also Flambe. He's a pyromancer and he can fly. You actually meet him really early on in the game before you retire and get recruited to SDN. You get into an argument with him at a bar, and depending on your actions, he either loses a tooth or has his eyebrows seared off. In my playthrough, he lost a tooth, so he spent the entire rest of the game with a slightly whistly,
That's really
slightly
fun.
whistly vibe. The next 2 are Sonar, who is like a man-bat kind of guy, and Coupe, who has
Not
a flight
Batman.
suit. No, a man-bat, who's also a
Okay.
character in Batman.
There's also Batman,
Yeah.
all the
Kit and
combinations
Coupe,
of men and bats you could imagine. In this
they're all
world.
covered. They're all covered. Coupe has
That's
a
it.
flight
It's just
suit
2.
and uses throwing knives. Early on in the game, you need to... This is probably episode 2 spoilers, I would say again. Early on in the game, you need to cut one of those 2, Sonar or Coupe, from the team. And then whoever you cut goes on to be the kind of secondary villain of the game.
You're forgetting something very important about Sonar,
Please.
voiced by Moist Critical.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Is he any good?
And
He's
Yeah,
quite
he's
good, I
pretty
think.
good.
Yeah, he's,
Oh, really?
he's
Yeah.
decent.
I don't know much about Moist Critical, but I wouldn't really imagine he's a good actor, particularly.
There's a couple of celebrity voices in there because there's
Yeah.
there's what's his fucking name? Sean something.
I don't know which one you mean. I will talk about the voices in a little bit.
The Irish guy. The Irish
Jacksepticeye.
Jacksepticeye, yeah.
Yeah.
I think his name is Sean.
He plays
I
Punch
don't think
Up. He
I
plays
don't think I
Punch Up.
just did an ism. I think his name is actually Sean.
Yeah, I don't know Most Critical or Jacksepticeye. I mean, I've heard of both of them. I've seen them around. I don't know anything about them. But they
Yeah.
were both pretty good in the game.
Yeah, they did
yeah.
a good job. Yeah. As far
Yeah.
as like, sort of YouTubers doing voices are concerned, it's pretty good. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, and then the last member of the Z team, arguably the most important character in this whole game is Invisigal, who is a gal that can become invisi.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Whoa!
Crack the
Yeah.
code.
It's clever.
Man,
It's clever.
I didn't get that.
I'm gonna explain why Invisigal is probably the most important character in the game, and to do that, I'm gonna need to let you in on a little secret about how this game works. How this game works is that there are actually far fewer options than it looks like there are when you're playing it. There are lots of choices which either have no effects or cause a slightly different cutscene to play, but then the ultimate outcome is still the same. And in fact, I would say that accounts for the majority of choices in the game. They don't really change anything down the line. And this is kind of a controversial fact about the game. Like, some people respond very negatively to that, as though that makes the game like kind of a fraud or something like that. Like, it's faking having more depth than it has. I can definitely understand that. I'm not going to lie. Like, I would like the game a bit more if there was a greater impact on your decisions. But with that said, it still does kind of undeniably work as it is. The game, while playing it, does give you the impression that all your choices matter, which, even though reading about it afterwards, you know that that's an illusion, it does serve to keep you very engaged throughout the game. The story is well written, it pulls you in, and because you feel that you are the one choosing, it does make you more invested in what's happening. When Robert needs to let someone go from the team, for example, you're the one making that choice. As Robert builds relationships with the characters, they're doing so on the basis of decisions that you've made at pivotal moments. So it really did work to make me feel more connected to the story and to the characters. And I kind of think that's enough by itself to justify being told in this kind of medium, like a kind of game adjacent medium. One of the cast members, Erin Yvette, she plays Blonde Blazer. She described the game in an interview with the BBC as interactive TV. And that feels very accurate to me. That feels like that basically is what's happening. Yeah, we've talked a little bit about the cast there, and the cast really, they are a standout for the game. They have a range of different kinds of people voicing it. Jacksepticeye, we've said, and Moist Critical, but they've also got like really well-established gaming voice actors like Laura Bailey, and they've also got big TV and movie actors like they've got Aaron Paul, best known from Breaking Bad, who plays Robert, and they've got Jeffrey Wright, who plays Chase. Those are very well established. But when I heard that going in, to me, I felt like an attempt to be headline grabbing, like as a way of promoting the game, like cover quite a few bases of different sorts of categories of people that you could get to do voice acting.
Mhm.
And I wondered if it was a bit sort of like cynical and if it wasn't actually going to be that good. But it was good. Like I do expect marketing was an aspect for sure, but it did work. So at the end of the day, I don't think it really mattered. The cast do a really good job of enhancing the writing. They sell the story and the characters very convincingly. And that does seem to be the popular opinion. I mean, the game ended up winning 3 BAFTAs, including one for Jeffrey Wright as Chase. So it definitely made the splash that it intended to with the voice cast. Anyway, let me get back to why do I need to explain that the decisions aren't really real a lot of the time in order to explain why Invisigo is the kind of most important character in the game? It's because, and this is now we're veering more towards spoilers, so brace yourself, lads.
Back out now.
Back out. Do a barrel roll. Oh no, that's the last episode.
Oh, oops.
It's because what really determines the ending you get in the game are 2 things. First, who you choose to romance, and second, how good of a mentor you are. So, on the romance part, you can build a romantic relationship with either Blonde Blazer or Invisigal in the game. Blonde Blazer is like basically wife material, right? Like she's very emotionally mature. She knows herself. She's super open about liking Robert. They have great chemistry from the get-go. Yeah, she's kind of your manager, but the game doesn't explore that at all. The game doesn't interested in that fact. Meanwhile, Invisigo, she's like a classic hot mess, to be honest. She's really struggling with the whole not
Manic
being a
Pixie Dream
villain anymore
Girl.
thing. Yeah, she is a bit of that. I mean, less sort of fun than that, I would say.
Less pixie, more manic.
Yes, yeah, I think that's right. She has a tough exterior, like she flirts with Robert by kind of being mean to him and making lots of like sexual
Banter.
jokes to him. Yeah, banter,
I believe it's
exactly.
called in the UK.
It is. Thank you so much, Sophie,
You're
for
welcome.
sharing our culture with us. But on the inside, she's clearly very, pretty vulnerable.
Actually, we generally call it the Bants, to be clear. Yeah.
Bants.
Yeah, just
Banter.
banter.
I love banter.
In the original version of the game, when the game first came out, there was a scene where she kissed Robert without his consent, which basically most players had to go through, and there was a bit of controversy around that. That scene's still in the game, but it only occurs under quite specific circumstances now. For me, I didn't think that was a problem. I felt very grounded in her character for that to happen. Obviously, that's a bad thing that she did, but characters can do bad things in games, and it felt it felt appropriate to what was going on in the story to me. So I didn't have a problem with that. I don't think I had that on my playthrough anyway, but yeah. The relationships are really well written. I think part of why they're well written is because it's such a controlled experience when compared to normal video games. Because you're just going through the narrative in the exact way that the developers want you to, they completely control the pacing. They control how often you see each prospective love interest. They determine exactly what situation you're going to see them in. It's not like a regular video game where you might have to account for a bunch of different possible player choices. So it really ends up feeling like a classic TV, sitcom style love triangle in a way that most games aren't quite able to pull off, I don't think. It really feels like it's a film's rom-com in quite an appealing way.
So
and there
it's
are also say again?
Twilight. It's Twilight for boys.
It's Twilight for boys. Yes, exactly.
It's Twilight
And
for
do you know what?
boys.
I like Twilight. Twilight's good. It's Twilight for boys.
Oh
That's
yeah,
good.
I say this Twilight for boys in brackets complimentary.
Complimentary.
I
Exactly.
saw someone review this game just saying it was Twilight for boys, and
It is Twilight
and it's
for boys,
I
and-
think that's really, and I think boys need Twilight in their
Oh, I
lives.
think
I
boys
think
need a bit of
Twilight's so
Twilight.
fun. I think you
I
guys
think so
need your
too.
own Twilight.
I
Yeah.
think we can maybe
Yeah,
aim slightly higher than Twilight. Like the same concept,
No,
but
we
higher.
need
Twilight's its own thing. You can aim higher and
keep.
Mm.
Yeah, yes,
keep
and
Twilight.
I agree with
Twilight's its own
I agree
special
with that.
thing.
What supernatural creature does Twilight feature, Sophie?
I wouldn't know.
Oh, could be anything. Could be anything.
Was it the werewolf?
Yeah, there's a werewolf.
Yeah,
I think.
werewolves.
That's the main one that stands
everyone
out.
knows,
Yeah.
I love werewolves.
Famously.
Yeah, Team Jakob. Yeah. The game even has some sex elements, which to me, I often feel quite cringed out when games do sex stuff. Here, it's a little bit cringy, but it's much better than it normally is in a video game. I would say it still feels in fact, Blonde Blazer and Invisigo overall do still feel a little bit male gazy, but like ultimately, I think it works. Like, and there's space for that kind of thing in appropriate settings, and this is kind of an appropriate setting. It's Twilight for
Twilight
boys,
for boys.
like you
It's
said.
appropriate. Yeah, they can have it. Go crazy.
They can have a little bit.
Yeah.
And they are well developed characters outside of that too.
So
It's
just
not
to be
like
clear,
it's just
you're advocating for women to wear skin tight outfits in the workplace, as happens in
No.
Dispatch. That's what you're advocating for, there, right?
No,
it's not.
no, I'm advocating for well-written
No, I said Ed.
characters
I was
that
talking about
are
Ed.
also eye candy.
I'm trying to get Ed in
and
this shit,
also
not you, Sophie.
demonstrate-
I'm trying to get Ed in this
Thanks,
shit.
Sophie.
All right.
Sophie's gone to bat for me there, and I appreciate that.
I will. I just think I'm very defensive of Twilight for boys, where it's like,
Okay.
listen, I think it's okay if we're doing a little bit of objectifying, as long as it also comes with like, oh, they're like real people that you're interested in as a person. Which, like, not to sidetrack you, but like you know what? I'll save it. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Sophie.
No problem.
Yeah, so anyway, that was all to do with the first main thing that decides the ending of the game is who you pursue romantically. And I ended up pursuing Blonde Blazer, as you probably gathered from my slightly biased description of the two characters.
He's the girl you should be with from the beginning.
Yeah. The second aspect, like I said, is determined by how good a mentor you are. But really, it's only measuring how good a mentor you are to Invisigal. If you choose the right options in the dialogue, and if you choose her and succeed and level her up and stuff in the dispatching minigame, then at the end, Invisigal will make better decisions than if you don't do that. And it's interesting that the mentor element plays out so exclusively through Invisigal, when Robert mentoring the whole team is like a real theme throughout the game. I do think I would probably have preferred if the mentor ending was based on more than just this one relationship, but it still works, but I don't love that completely. And so, so there are two things that determine your ending. One is your relationship, which could well be with Invisigal. She's one of the two options. And the other is your relationship with Invisigal in terms of, did you mentor her well? So Invisigal kind of determines 100% of what the ending you get is. And I'm not sure why they went all in like this. This and a few other elements combine it to make it feel like Invisigal might have been their like preferred, their like intended choice. And it feels, their canon ending. And it feels weird to me to have so clear an intended choice in a game about a love triangle where the player is like navigating a love triangle. Like this probably shouldn't be like probably the right, like kind of quote unquote right answer. Especially because the game is also about like a team.
Yeah.
Like it's about building a team and mentoring a team. So why does it focus on one person? Politically, I would say there are certain points where I feel like the game is pointedly disinterested in several ways in exploring certain political themes. Like all the material is there to explore a couple of different elements, but it decides not to. So you guys probably already picked up on this, but I said we work for a for-profit emergency service which only serves subscribers. And I was fully expecting this to be a theme or something explored by the game when it was first introduced. For example, early on, there were some quite trivial emergencies that got phoned in from subscribers. For example, a kid's balloon got stuck in a tree. Like, there are other ones you're doing where it's life or death, and there's fires and all this stuff. So I was kind of half expecting that this was a setup for like a decision down the road, but you need to choose between helping a paying subscriber with a trivial issue and helping someone who actually needs it but who isn't a subscriber. Like that's the sort of thing I thought they might be doing. But no, that doesn't happen at all. They don't explore it even slightly. And apparently in secondary media, you find out that the subscription is actually just a one-off payment for $40, which, I mean, that's not a subscription. That's a one-off payment for a service.
Yeah.
And it feels like kind of an attempt to defang the potential politics here even further.
I mean, I want to talk about the realities of running a superhero squad, but like, I can't imagine that $40 per life is going to cover much.
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
No.
I mean, maybe this only stands out as something like overtly political in a society where all the emergency services are free. I mean, ad hoc studios are based in the US. Maybe they're just more used to paying for their emergency services there.
Mm.
But it did feel like there was something interesting there that they didn't explore.
Mm.
The most obvious theme, this like political theme that they do explore is rehabilitative justice. Obviously, the very premise of the game, we see these former villains going through this program to make them better people. And depending on your choices, it either entirely works or it very nearly entirely works. This is played out through the Invisigal mentoring stuff as well. The more we trust Invisigal, the more we support her, the more we have faith that she's doing the right thing, the more likely it is that she'll be a hero at the end who makes good decisions during the ending.
Mm.
So, yeah, towards the end of the game, some Invisigal's allegiance is called into question. Let's say at various stages, with Invisigal doing things that could be seen as villainous, and you have to either trust her or not. And if you do, she turns out to be a better person for you having trusted her. If you see what I mean.
Mm.
As an aside, some of that stuff at the end was quite unclear. I think there's like an element where you're playing it where you're like, oh, there must be an explanation for why she's acting really weird, and it's kind of not. They're kind of just having her act really weird to like create drama in like a classic like C tier rom com where a character kind of acts out of character just to sort of manufacture drama.
Mm.
That's kind of a shame, but I mean, again, it doesn't really undermine it. The game also highlights how Invisigal was set up to fail from the get go. She expresses how much more obvious invisibility helps you, how much more obviously invisibility helps you with like being a thief, for example, than
Mm.
something heroic. She's felt all her life like she was basically biologically determined to be a villain. But what we see in the game is that the right kind of socialization, a positive, supportive, trusting
Mm.
environment can help you grow past that. And when we reject, and also when we reject someone early on in the game, they become a villain.
Mm.
I mean, they can even be welcomed back into the team at the end. But again, I think the game is showing quite explicitly pro-rehabilitative justice themes, and it's against the sort of harsh treatment of cutting people away from their work and their relationships, showing that this only damages people further and makes them more likely to commit crimes. So yeah, the only other element I want to mention just before I wrap up here is that at the end of each episode, it tells you how many people made the same choices that you made at various points throughout the episode. And that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that, and I'd like more games to do that. It's really entertaining when you think that you've made quite a controversial choice, and then it turns out like 80% of people make the exact same choice,
Mm.
or the opposite, where you think, oh, well, this is a pretty easy choice, and no, most people didn't think so. Most people went the other way.
Did most people disagree with
And
you on Invisigirl and Romancer?
I don't remember. I believe it was super close. I
Oh.
think maybe more people did do Invisigal as option, but I think
Mm.
it was actually very close, which was quite surprising. And that's the game. Ultimately, as Aaron Abet said, it's much more interactive TV with the occasional dispatching minigame section than it is a traditional game. And in fact, I believe the game was originally sort of inspired by Bandersnatch and was going to be a live action thing rather than an
Oh, really?
animated style thing. And it only transitioned away from that during COVID. But I had a really good time with Dispatch. I was worried about superhero fatigue going in, that might prevent me from engaging with it properly or taking it seriously.
Mm.
And that it would feel like maybe, I was concerned that maybe it would feel like a rehash of something like The Boys or something like that.
Mm.
But no, it worked. I really did get carried away with the relationships. I got into the story, and the story's not like Citizen Kane or anything. It's just like if it was just a season of TV, it would be like solid, but nothing to write home about. But the interactive elements do succeed at elevating that, connecting you more to that material, and you know, even if it's illusionary, your feeling of like ownership over what happened, like the feeling is real, even if the impression that you have much control is kind of an illusion. And I was definitely emotionally invested in what was going on, more so than the average season of TV that I watch, and definitely more so than the average game that I play. So yeah, often it felt like I wasn't playing a game. It felt like I was co-writing the season of TV. So if great and like interesting, complicated gameplay is a must in your games, like obviously this isn't the game for you. But otherwise, if you just want like a well-told, well-written story with some of the more developed, more interesting relationships that you'll see in video games, this one makes you feel the things that it's trying to make you feel throughout the game. And on that basis, I'd say check this out.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, the thing I found out about this game that I was kind of really surprised by is that it basically has no 3D graphics. It's entirely FMV. but like the graphics kind of look like a PlayStation could do them, but it's actually just full FMV. So it's basically an FMV game, just like, back in the 90s on a CD-ROM or whatever. Maybe that's why the choices were limited, because they couldn't make that many changes because it's all baked in like that. I wonder.
Yeah, I was wondering that too, and I thought that would probably explain. Yeah, that would go towards the logic of having it all sort of funneled through one person in a way, like because that basically can remove some of those variables. Like you just need to work out less if it does all go through Invisigal like that. So I think it's probably. I think I've given this excuse for games before in the past. I don't think it's. I don't imagine that they just didn't think of doing it a different way. I imagine that there's like very solid like material reasons why the game turned out the way it did. But it's worth critiquing.
I remember. Well, I wonder if it's because I didn't play many of the Telltale games. I didn't play any of the Walking Dead ones. I did play a couple of the others, but they notoriously had some really terrible 3D engine that like crashed all the time and fucked up. So I guess I can imagine these devs are just like, wow, we can just completely sidestep that and just have basically a bunch of video clips that makes our lives so much easier. And this game's been very successful, so I guess it paid off for them. Yeah. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see if there's a season 2 or not.
I think
I'm sure there will be.
I'm sure there will be. I can't remember. I feel like I heard something, but I don't know if it has been confirmed.
It's not been confirmed, I don't believe. But I mean, recently Aaron Paul was asked in an interview if he'd do a season 2, and he said he was like definitely up for it. So
also
you'd imagine he might be
performance.
one of the harder people to lock down. So
Yeah, but also incredible performance from him as well. Really, really good.
yeah, it was really good. Yeah, I mean, I guess he's got a lot of voice acting experience with BoJack Horseman.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't played this game myself. It was very, very popular on Twitch. Like obviously a lot of games are popular on Twitch, but like these style of choice games are really, really popular on Twitch. People love them. I think Hassan played it, actually. I think he played it. I don't know if he finished it. But suffice to say, I sort of watched intermittent bits and pieces of loads of people playing it. I didn't have any interest in playing it myself, despite really liking The Walking Dead. And I think I genuinely do think the only reason I wasn't really particularly interested was because I could kind of tell that I wasn't the target audience in terms of being the woman, basically. Like maybe if you're, I don't even think it would necessarily be for you if you were like a lesbian, particularly. I do feel like it is quite male gazy, but not in a way that's like exclusionary. Unless I think that's fine. But I think, yeah, for me, it like was never that appealing. So I was like, oh, I don't think this is for me. I don't think I'm the target market for this, and I think that's okay.
Well, you really don't like superheroes either, do you? So
that's the other thing is I really do not like superheroes. So I definitely do have like superhero fatigue where I'm like, I just don't really feel like engaging with this. But it did look like a very, good attempt at this sort of storytelling game. I love The Walking Dead. I've thought many times of doing of writing a video essay about how much I love The Walking Dead. I think it is so fantastic. I love games like this because I feel like they really address the issue of why is this a game, right? Why is this story being told via a game as instead of a movie, right? And I feel like The Walking Dead had so many I do also feel like, because I don't think The Walking Dead, the plot doesn't really change that much. Mostly what changes in The Walking Dead, according to your decisions, is who's going to be there with you throughout the rest of the journey. And I feel like, those characters sort of get written in such a way that they can be included or excluded quite easily, whether or not they die or whether or not they get banished, etc. But it, really faces you with really, really powerful, difficult decisions. And I think also makes commentaries about, not super interesting or novel, but some sort of social commentary in terms of racism and also the justice system as well. You do seem to have an interest in that because Lee, the character you play as right in the beginning of the game, he is on his way to prison, basically, for a crime that we don't know what he committed. So the entire rest of the game is sort of set up in the perspective of you've done something and you can either use that as a motivation for maybe behaving in ways that that could be perceived as selfish but maybe self-interested versus maybe he's very interested in atonement, this sort of thing. So it creates this really interesting way to sort of play that character. But something I also wanted to comment on, sorry, is just that I guess it was just kind of nice to see the conversation online. I thought it was really interesting to see the conversations happening online about the two love interests because I felt like they were very we talked about sort of male gaze and stuff, but it was very unobjectifying the way that I saw men talk about this game and like engage with the characters. Like men genuinely being like, oh, Blonde Blazer's like really good for me and I feel good about myself when I'm with her, but like also Invisigal is so exciting. It feels like so much more exciting to be with her and I kind of love how she's mean to me and I feel like I'm closer to her for that reason. Like men sort of really engaging with quite a complex emotional relationship and differences between those two relationships. And I thought that was just really fun and interesting to see instead of just like, oh, well, she's fucking fit as hell, but she's fit as hell. It's like, okay, I thought that was really interesting. And it kind of brings me back to I'm also like genuinely quite pleasantly surprised that it was a 50-50 split between Invisigal and Blonde Blazer because like, so as someone who's like interested in characters like Astarion and Spike, who are like quote unquote bad boys and things, I've had a lot of like annoying conversations with specifically men about like, oh, liking bad boys or liking characters that require fixing or whatever. And I think it's really interesting that like when men sort of fancy fictional characters like Harley Quinn or like Invisigal, nobody's like, you're fucking insane. I can't believe you're date. This is why, guys say that women only go for bad boys is because they just don't date nice guys. That like men's sort of interest in fictional characters is not extrapolated as like their interest in real people in general, the way that it is for women. And it just kind of, it was just really interesting for me that like, I guess I don't know, that's kind of a misnomer, but it's just something that I was thinking about in terms of like Invisigal being this sort of classic toxic girlfriend type character where it's just like, oh, I just love her because she's so hot and she's mean to me and I like that. And I'm like, that's so cool. That's so fun. Yeah, it's like, yeah, she's exciting and unpredictable and there's an adventure in that, right? But then also people preferring like the very stable, more mature, Blonde Blazer. And it's like, yeah, I think that's also really fun and exciting for you. I think that's really wonderful. And yeah, I just, I don't know. I think it's fun to explore fictional romances in this way, in a way that sort of offers lots of different options and lots of different sort of styles of relationships and styles of communication and like emotional maturity and stuff. And yeah, not super concise thought, but it's just some things that I was thinking about with this game and also while you were talking about it.
Ed, before you address
Thank
that,
you.
can you
Yeah.
just let us know which one of the girls is most fit as hell?
Which one's the most fittest of all?
Waterboy.
Waterboy.
Waterboy. Yeah. Sorry. Unfortunately, he's not an option.
No.
Not until season 2.
Yay!
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think Invisigo is probably slightly more popular than Blonde Blazer. Like it is pretty close.
Which I'm not surprised by. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah,
Because it's a fantasy.
I think that's all we've got to. Yeah, I feel like that draws a nice line underneath our dispatch conversation.
That's it.
That's all, folks.
I believe it's my dear friend and colleague Sophie.
Could it be?
Who's going to be talking through her game next.
It's me, Sophie. Okay.
We're going to get copyright struck for that.
No, they wait until they find out I've never played a Mario game.
Oh, you're just going to get arrested.
I don't even know what that is.
Definitely getting struck.
Yeah, so I guess I'm going to be talking about Exit 8, basically, because now this is it's not that embarrassing. I haven't played the game, okay? Straight up. I haven't played the game, all right? I have not played this video
safe
game.
Space. It's a safe space for everyone.
It's good to be honest.
It's a safe space, but I'm not talking about the video game, okay? Joke's on you, dear listener. I'm actually talking about the movie based on the video game. So, yeah, so basically I saw Exit 8 in the cinema recently, and I haven't had much time for video games, but a friend of mine actually suggested that I talk about it because I mentioned that I am also going to make an effort to see Backrooms, which is another movie based on a horror video game, which is coming out in the next couple.
I mean, it's not really.
I think at the end of this month.
Backrooms isn't really a game; it's just like a meme, sort of.
No.
They made a game of it, but it was originally like a meme concept.
No, I think there's like a full video game called Backrooms.
Someone has made a game of it, but like the concept of Backrooms.
I guess
I
guess I'm thinking of Escape the Backrooms, which I guess maybe it's not based on a game.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not based on Escape the Backrooms, but I'll double check that. But either way, it feels like it could potentially. Well, I feel like it might be actually based on. Okay, yeah. So you're right. The Backrooms movie is based on a creepypasta and a web series, not directly on the game. But I still feel like they're sort of tangentially, well, not even tangentially linked. They are
They're very
sort of
thematically
drawing
linked.
on the same
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
inspiration there. Yeah.
Lin
S-
liminal horror, right?
Liminal horror,
Okay.
yeah. So forget Backrooms then, but Exit 8 is also liminal horror. It's a product of liminal horror as well, the sort of uncanny. So Exit 8, the video game, is basically a 2023 indie adventure game. It's developed by Kotake Create. So it's a Japanese game. You'd know this as well when you walk in the game, everything is like in Japanese. It's modeled after a Japanese subway. So that makes sense. It's described here as billed as a walking simulator. The game revolves around the player walking through a Japanese metro station passageway, trying to spot inaccuracies referred to as anomalies. So basically, the goal of the game is it's an extremely simple game. You're sort of put in this all-white subway, hallway, sort of concourse, and you come to a sign which says, spot all the anomalies. If you do not see an anomaly, then continue forwards. If you do see an anomaly, turn back. Okay, and basically the idea is that you go through this concourse, which has like a couple of details, namely some posters on the wall, some maintenance doors on your side, some signage above and around, sort of emergency signage, and some lighting. But otherwise, it's an extremely bare set, essentially, like an extremely bare concourse. One of the details is also that a man will come walking down the hallway towards you with a briefcase and a receding hairline.
The most
So
terrifying,
I think the
part of
most
this game.
terrifying thing of all, exactly. And so basically, you sort of walk through this passageway multiple times until you spot an anomaly, and then you turn back. If you don't, you continue forward. The anomalies range from very easy to spot to very difficult to spot. I think most people, when they first sort of start up the game, they sort of like make a note, and this happens in the movie as well. They make a note of like every single thing. They're like, okay, so there's 7 posters on the wall. There's 3 doors on the right. There's a sign overhead. It says this. There's this kind of poster, this kind of poster, this kind of poster. So people like take very, very sort of painstaking notes of each thing that's in the hallway that could possibly change. And then there are very big changes. Like sometimes you will walk through the concourse and all of the lights will go out. Or sometimes you will walk through the concourse and the man who walks down the passage every time will look at the player or will smile at you instead. It's really quite delightfully creepy. Like really, really sort of thanks, Ed. A perfect facial expression. I love it. And the film basically it's a Japanese film. It's like a direct sort of one-to-one, what do you call it? Rendition? What's adaptation? It's a direct like one-to-one adaptation, which I feel like often, I don't know if Japan just has like a particular rule about adaptations, but I find they tend to be almost like precisely one-to-one.
Mm-hmm.
They try very, very hard it seems like, to make it like very, very accurate to the original experience. Maybe because the video game was such a cult hit, they sort of like really, really tried. As far as the movie goes, I think it was like a solid like 7 out of 10 for me. It was fun. It was quite spooky, but I do think it relied on some tropes, which I don't believe are necessarily in the video game, like crying babies and stuff. And I think in the movie, they ended up sort of trying to tell an allegorical story about the birth crisis in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
The way I interpret it being that you're sort of going round and round in a track of like, they're not really dealing with the actual problem of nobody wants to have kids because women don't have rights.
Yeah.
And also people aren't paid enough. And they're sort of going round and round in circles instead, talking about other things that are not the problem, like offering a stipend for if you like a once-off stipend if you have kids, or, help getting into a nursery or something. It's like not really addressing the problem. It's kind of how I interpreted it, because in the movie, the main character, basically, it sort of opens on him having a conversation with his girlfriend who has accidentally fallen pregnant and sort of deciding what to do. And the entire movie kind of follows along with his indecision about what to do about this pregnancy. The game does not have as much of a plot. You're literally just dropped in the subway. There's no explanation for where or how you are there. It's just entirely uncanny and left up to the sort of player to decide. I've looked up, just out of interest, some speed runs, because I figured this is the sort of game. I was looking up speed runs because I was trying to identify whether or not the anomalies are the same every single time in terms of the numbered like session of each corridor that you might be doing or something. But no, it appears that the anomalies do appear in a completely random order. There are very, very many that can occur, and no two anomalies will happen. Sorry, no one anomaly will happen more than once. So you will always come across multiple different types of anomalies to keep it fresh, I suppose. The number one speed run, just like a full playthrough, no glitches, etc., is 1 minute and 3 seconds.
Wow.
And that is a fun speed run to watch, because you will see these players like go down the corridor, immediately turn back. Like you have no idea what they noticed is different, but they must have noticed something, right? So it's actually quite a fun, like interesting little speed run to look at. But yeah, I guess I just I do like these kind of very surreal and very simple horror games. It makes me think of like Slender Man as well. I think that's like such a classic in terms of like it's just such a simple concept, and it is gold. Obviously that genre was just parodied to death, but if you don't know, listener, Slender Man, the whole goal was just you were in a spooky forest. It's very dark. You have a flashlight. You have to find, I think, 7 pages, but basically with every page you find, a threat sort of lurks nearer and nearer to you, and it's very spooky. And both Exit 8 and I think, Exit 8 really successfully sort of utilizes this idea of just it being kind of uncanny and creepy. Like I think in Slender Man, really bad looking game, but it's just so effectively designed in terms of its sound design, and also the sort of like element of the unseen of what you don't see is actually scarier. And Exit 8 is it's just, it very much monopolizes on the fact that you are concentrating so hard on trying to find differences that of course you're much likely to jump scare as well, because you're, sitting there looking at posters to see if they're different. Yeah, and I just think it's a wonderful innovation of trying to depict horror in a video game. And again, it's definitely works better in a video game than it does on screen. It's not as successful on screen. It gets a little bit tiresome every time you sort of get to the end of the hallway and it goes back down to 0. When you're watching it on screen, it's quite frustrating because you don't have any input. Even if you've picked up on a difference that you're watching as a viewer, it can be quite frustrating that you're like, oh no, like you could clearly see that something was different in this hallway, but you continued on anyway. So the video game in this particular instance is, again, like kind of a perfect utilization of a video game in that doesn't really work on screen because it's actually just frustrating to have that experience halted and stopped and started again. But for you yourself in the moment, it kind of gives you so much power, but also absolutely no power. And I just think it's just wonderful and uncanny. I don't really think there's much politics, like I said. Well, to the video game, I think there is some politics to the movie, but I think that's heavily open to interpretation. I went to see the movie with a friend, and he had a completely different idea coming out of the movie. I think he just thought it was more about work culture, and sort of like the daily trudgery of going to work, which I think it absolutely could be. I think the movie for me it felt like it was trying to encapsulate quite a few themes, which might have contributed to it sort of feeling a bit muddy for me. And also I think probably themes that we, don't necessarily have a super like first person perspective of in terms of it. I think it being quite a Japanese piece of media, making a commentary, I think, on Japanese problems, not uniquely Japanese problems, but I feel like it had a very Japanese perspective, which is, I think, the only reason I had the takeaway of like, maybe it's actually just about the birth problem. When I say birth problem, I mean that Japan has a ever-increasing, a population issue. The Japanese might go extinct by 2040 or something ridiculous. I'm sure that's sort of all of our listeners know that. But yeah, I don't know about the video game. I don't think the video game has anything particularly interesting to say. I think it's just this wonderful little experiment. It is available in VR, and I can imagine that it would be a really fun VR experience. Ed? Anyone? But yeah, basically, I don't have the.
Wow. It's got
Ed
his
just
cyber deck
brandished
right
the
here.
VR headset to us.
I'm ready to go. I record all of my my Red Barrels appearances in VR.
Oh, hell yeah.
It lives in the metaverse.
So yeah, I mean, I do think there's definitely, maybe there's also there's probably additional political interpretation to be had from the horror of liminal spaces in general. in terms of the way that capitalism has made us design a lot of our societies around quite liminal spaces. America, quite famously, is just like 80% car parks.
Yeah.
And those are really liminal and
Mm.
strange. Like, it is very weird to be. I've never been in an American suburb, but I have been. There's an excellent YouTube video about sort of liminal spaces in city design, in urban planning design.
Mm.
And like, I've been in a Canadian suburban space where it's like very American in terms of like lawns and houses that all look identical and roads that have pavements on either side and no pedestrians. There's just no one around. The roads are empty. The houses are seemingly empty because everyone's in their backyards and not in the front, even though they have these like perfectly manicured lawns. And it is very liminal and strange.
Mm.
Also, I think definitely, the abandonment of the mall, I think, is also a sort of very recent memory of liminal spaces and how that could be quite creepy
Mm.
as an adult. I mean, for me, I've done a bit of urban exploring
Oh,
in my
really?
time.
Wow.
I like abandoned places. Yeah. When I was in Japan, there's a lot of abandoned places in Japan. Probably also speaks to the sort of liminal nature of the game, is that there are a lot of like weird abandoned places, especially theme parks in Japan.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about those.
I went to a place called Canadian Land in Hokkaido, which is basically just an entirely empty, massive theme park themed on Anne of Green Gables.
Oh.
And it's just rolling lawns and like old European style architecture in like a little town. Is just completely empty.
That's weird.
It's really strange and very liminal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like, and obviously metro stations in general as well. I know you can do tours on the London Underground of some of the abandoned stations in London, and I would really like to do this. I'm very interested in those because train
I'd like
stations.
to do those too.
Yeah, train stations also super, super spooky and liminal when they're empty. Feels like you're in the wrong place at the wrong time.
British Museum. There used to be a station called British Museum. It's been closed up.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Mm.
Yeah, there's like I think there's
Trip?
like a
Yeah,
let's
trip.
go. Let's go.
Podcast meetup.
Genuinely, because I'm dying to do one of those tours. I might even do one for my birthday.
too.
Who knows? It's just because like there's several. There's like 4 or 5 abandoned stations. You can even walk down the tracks and like see the tunnels and stuff. And I just love shit like that. I love spooky shit like
I'd
that.
be
Which maybe
super up for that.
right? Which like
Send
maybe
us an invite, Sophie.
I will. Which I think definitely explains my sort of the sort of natural draw that I have to games like these. I love this kind of like surreal atmospheric horror. That was me just yapping a lot. But I don't know. Any input, any sort of thoughts on capitalism creating liminal spaces? Any thoughts on liminal games and horror in general?
I don't know about liminal spaces, but I'm interested in this movie that's depicting what is effectively, I mean, as from my understanding, just a guy just playing the game, almost, apart from like some little changes here and there, but pretty much as
Yeah.
shown in the game. That's quite, I
Yeah.
mean, most of them, like, I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. The main reason I went to see it, because I was like, how are you going to turn a whole movie into
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to turn this game into like 60 minutes? Because like long first-time playthroughs, the Markiplier playthrough of this video game, I chose Markiplier because it's like, mainstream YouTuber. The Markiplier playthrough of this video game is about 45 minutes long. Obviously, that's with edits as well. But
Yeah.
you can presume it probably took him about an hour
Yeah.
to play. And most full playthroughs are between 30 and 40 minutes long. So it's a very short game. So I was like, how are you going to turn this into an hour and a half? And it was a bit of a stretch, if we're entirely honest. It was a bit of a stretch. They decided to they turned the sort of man that repeatedly walks past you in the video game. They turned him into a character
Yeah.
and explored him stuck in the universe as well. So the movie kind of expanded on the concept of the game, implying that there are multiple people stuck in this infinite subway all at the same time. Like it's its own sort of
Oh, I
universe that's
see.
repeating over and over, like a sort of infinite subway universe that people just sort of get trapped in. But the game implies nothing of the sort. So I thought that's really interesting in terms of they had to really expand that
yeah.
concept to make it into a movie.
Well, no, just,
And also just any thoughts on video game movie adaptations in general? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, just it's because like I don't know. I know in the cinemas right now is or coming soon maybe is Mortal Kombat 2, the new movie, and it's like
That looks bad.
yeah, it doesn't look very good. I didn't see Mortal Kombat 1. I mean, saw Mortal Kombat back in the 90s. That was a good film. The theme sheet's good, but I don't think I'm gonna watch that. If I watch that, even if it's really good, actually, and get a feeling
Mm.
like, oh, I know what it's like to play Mortal Kombat, you know. Whereas I
Mm.
feel like if I watched XA, I'd be pretty close to feeling like I'd
Mm.
played XA. I mean, it seems like, I mean, that's kind of the premise of
That's
you talking
100%
about it
how
right
I
now.
feel.
Yeah.
I feel like I've basically played it.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then I watched Markiplier play it, and yeah, I've played it.
You got it. You got it. You got it.
I played the
Yeah,
game.
it's just interesting. I don't think I've ever. I'm sure there's probably something I'm not thinking of because there are a bunch of game movies now. But this feels like it's pretty much the only time I can think of where that you would get that feeling. I don't know. It's
Mm.
interesting that they managed that. And I mean, when I first heard they were making this film, I thought, oh, that's quite a good match because yeah, they could just practically just broadcast a game session essentially. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking of the liminal stuff, I guess the first person that comes to mind for me is Mark Fisher and his
Yeah.
kind of
Of
Mm.
work.
course, yeah.
Um,
Weird and the
you
Eerie.
know, yeah, the weird and the eerie, is it called Ghost of My Life? Is it called?
It's Ghost of My Life, yeah.
Ghost of My Life. Yeah. I've not got anything particularly to say about that.
Mm.
Only to say, yeah, that's the kind of thing that always brings to mind to me. There's a lot to. I think there's a lot to unpack in how the liminal does link
Mm.
to like
Mm.
wider social forces, and especially in how it sits with us right now. I think like people looking back to like maybe like a late 90s, early noughties kind of like abandoned supermarket or not supermarket, like mall sort of thing from that kind of era. Like we've talked to like you sort of alluded to like the death of the high
Mm.
street sort of vibe. Like there is a bit of
Mm.
that in there. There's like a nostalgia, but like
Mm.
like a lost future
Mm.
Yeah.
thing there. It's like the promise of the 90s, which was never gonna
Mm.
like the capitalist promise of the 90s is dead, and it was basically dead from the start. But like it felt like it was alive when we were kids, and here's the like body, here's like the grave, here's the corpse of that
Mm.
future in an abandoned
Yeah.
mall.
Mhm.
That's what I always think of when I'm thinking of liminal spaces.
It
Sorry,
Yeah.
go on,
definitely,
Alex.
there's definitely something hauntological about it, and like I think
Yeah.
like
For
Hauntology.
sure.
the back rooms. I mean, that the back rooms are basically just a
Mm.
big empty office, right? That's what it looks like,
Mhm.
and like that's kind of like a extension of like the thing you got in like the 90s of like how awful it is to have like a steady job in an office in a cubicle and
Yeah.
all those films like The
Yeah.
Matrix and like American Beauty and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
this is kind of, I don't know, just like taken to some like crazy extension, like, oh, just imagine if you were trapped in an empty office, but like also there is definitely like a longing for like, oh, what if this office was full of people and I could work there and have a job
Mm.
and have a decent income
Mm.
and a house I could afford and so on. Yeah, there's definitely something there. There's an interesting element to it.
Mm.
Yeah. The contrast with like a dead past with like a sort of dead future, I guess.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like it really speaks to that. Like, again, the Mark Fisher line. It really speaks to like the idea that it's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
We have to really work hard to imagine if like a future that we feel good
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
which is a
Which,
shame.
like, I don't know if I can articulate this very well, but it also the fact that, like, obviously it was a fairly, like, I guess the game, just sort of briefly skimming the Wikipedia page, they did want to make it, like, a profitable game, but it is obviously quite a small, release from Japan that, like, could have not translated well, right, in terms of...
Sure.
But did actually translate very well. Again, it was a very popular game on stream. People loved it. I think it was a bit of a sort of viral sensation. And I kind of also, there's something I can't quite articulate as well about this weird sense of nostalgia about Japan that Westerners feel.
Yeah.
And like
Mm.
also the sort of Japanese subway in particular and the sort of Japanese public transit system that like there's definitely like a strange, maybe also like a sort of a promised but not delivered on future, a version of,
Yeah. Do we think this? I mean, no, I wouldn't. I don't know, but do we think there's something post-imperial about this? Like, is there something?
Mm.
Is that something happening like in the cultural psyche? Like we're seeing this in again, like former imperial heartlands. We see Americans talk about this a lot. The British talk about it a lot. The
Yeah.
Japanese talk about it a lot. I wonder if this like feeling of the sort of lost future doesn't quite resonate, or at least resonates in a different way in different contexts, especially if you're from like a nation that was colonized rather than from the one doing the colonizing.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to hear from someone with that perspective.
Yeah. Like all of this sort of stuff built for what, I don't know.
Consumption, I guess.
Yeah,
Like, I don't
something
know.
in
Like,
there.
maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Something in there. I don't
This is,
know.
I'm thinking out loud, you know.
These are beginnings,
I don't know what it
the
is.
beginnings
I'm
of,
just
a,
speaking.
of a paper, gang. We've got to work together.
Yeah.
We can publish
Well, 'cause
this.
I actually went and looked to see if there were any papers on this game because I just thought that maybe it's just because I'm doing a master's degree at the moment. But I was like, oh, this feels ripe for some kind of analysis.
Yeah,
There were no papers on this game. There were a lot of, papers on video games exploring liminal spaces in particular. But like nothing on Exit 8 in specific. But yeah, I just thought this I don't know. There's something here. There's something here that I don't think the people who made this game necessarily even intended for it to be in the game, but there is something in it that I can't quite capture with words or thought, you know?
Yeah. An
that's it.
ineffable quality.
And I won't. And I'll stop trying.
And I apologise to our listeners for failing to give a full, definitive opinion on this matter.
Listen,
we've let you
if
down.
you have a better idea, call in.
Yeah.
You know the number.
Yeah, well,
right?
Yeah.
at the end of
We always share the
this,
number.
we'll tell you
We'll
social
tell them the
media
number.
stuff. It's not a number. We'll just do it over Twitter or
0800 020.
No, we told this. I had to edit this out last time because Ed just said
That's not a
made
real
up a phone
number.
number, and I just did
That's
not
not a
want to
real
get in trouble.
number.
Yeah, well, because I stopped you there. All right. I think that's it for Exit A, which means that's right. It's exciting. It's gonna be me talking about Disco Elysium. We're doing it. We're finally doing it.
Whee!
So, I mean, I guess I'll just do a quick intro to this game. I wonder how many of our yes. I mean, this isn't set in the Soviet Union. This is fictional world where the revolution probably had a different national anthem. Probably, just saying.
Go on then.
Well, hey,
Sing.
the
What's the
Revacholian
place
commune.
called? Sing the Revacholian
national anthem. There may be.
anthem.
I think it's
Do
probably
it now.
Oh, Ravishal.
However will I.
Yeah, there we go. We did it. It's our Christmas tree, or the red flag.
Red flag
I'm
is
just saying,
clearly
I
what
always
I was
think of
going
that as
for,
the
Alex. Come
Christmas
on.
tree. What kind of
Ravishal,
that's a more famous
Ravishal.
song. As I made
I'm
it
gonna
clear,
have
I
that stuck
knew
in
it
my
was
head
also
for the rest of the day, man.
The red flag. Disco Elysium. I mean, I wonder how many of our audience doesn't know this game. I'd probably say the majority of our audience have played this game. Significant majority even. This game, I've been saying it, is the most important piece of Marxist art of the 21st century. I genuinely don't think anything can compare to it. The closest thing I can think of is the works of Sally Rooney, which, as great as it may be, people aren't doing cosplay as Sally Rooney characters. It hasn't got the level of cultural impact as Disco Elysium. And,
I feel like these are bold claims.
I
They're
maintain
very
it.
really
bold
bold
I
claims.
maintain it.
Yeah.
I maintain
As
it.
someone who works in a bookshop,
Well, I'm sorry, but
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, man.
I don't know,
mean,
I
man.
would say maybe definitely for video games, like 100%.
video games.
Yeah.
But
Of
I
course,
mean,
yeah.
I don't think you could name.
Art generally.
I don't. Not that has like.
Are
Are we including
an
Soviet
impact-
art
not-
in that?
on the 21st century, there is no
21st century.
Soviet art, unfortunately.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, having cultural impact. I mean, people know this game in a way that people don't know Sally Rooney books or any other books. Frankly, I mean, of Marxist books.
I don't know. I don't know about
I
that.
maintain
bit.
it. I
don't
maintain
know.
it. Like, name one.
Oh, well, if Alex maintains it.
Name one. Name a piece of Marxist art that had a bigger impact than Disco Elysium in the 21st century. You
There's
challenged
so
me,
many
man.
books. There's so
Potentially
many
Sally Rooney
books.
works.
I don't think Sally
Yeah.
Rooney books aren't as famous as Disco Elysium.
Well, that's a specific bit that I'm not sure
completely
that's
disagree.
true.
That's not true.
I
That is not
maintain
true.
it. I guarantee that.
No, that is.
I
that
guarantee
is
that
so
normal
echo
people,
chamber.
normal
Alex,
people,
they do not know what Disco Elysium
Disco
is.
Elysium. I mean,
They do.
Sally
no, but
Rooney's
normal
book.
people do.
Sally Rooney's books are not that
actual
famous
normal
either.
people. Yes, they are. Are you
Nice.
joking?
They aren't that famous.
They're on like every 100 books to read before you die list. Like
I think
everyone knows Sally Rooney and normal
think
people.
Sophie is
I don't want
correct,
to
Alex,
bash
I'm
off Sally
afraid.
Rooney. I've got nothing
No,
against Sally
listen,
Rooney.
like I'm on the authority on this. I work in a bookshop. I could tell you people know Sally Rooney. I work in a leftist bookshop, and everyone will know Sally Rooney.
Yeah, leftist bookshop, of course they will. Yeah.
50 to 70% of people will know what Disco Elysium is. But like people who
I
all of my
think
coworkers who some
in
of
a
them play
leftist
games and
bookshop,
don't know what
Sophie,
Disco
in a
Elysium
leftist
is.
bookshop.
Sophie, do you think your
Yeah.
parents would know who Sally Rooney was?
No, but my parents don't read.
Well,
Okay.
congratulations.
They don't
Welcome to
engage
most of the
They
people.
don't engage with any
Most
art.
of the people don't read either.
Bro,
Sophie.
like, but it's also turned into like a TV show. Like,
Yeah, it was such a-
people are very familiar
It
with
was a
normal people.
it was a
I
BBC
get-
show that was reasonably popular, but
I
like
think you've turned the argument into does everyone know Normal People by Sally Rooney, and that's not the argument.
I'm
It's,
saying
do
that more people
know
know
Sally
Disco
Rooney
Elysium
more than Disco Elysium.
I maintain it.
Absolutely, people know. That's crazy. That's
Disco
genuinely
Elysium is
insane.
an incredibly popular game.
Are you telling me that like
This is
a
a
regular
heavy
40-year-old
tangent.
person will know what like Disco Elysium
I think you are
is?
overestimating the number of firstly, I'm a regular
I think
40-year-old
you're
person.
underestimating how many people know any books. Like full stop.
I said, look, I didn't.
Versus like most people don't know a single video game beyond Call of Duty. Like
I mean, I will say-
most people. Or the
I will say
Sims.
normal people was the most viewed program on iPlayer that BBC Three has ever had.
BBC Three.
22 million people watched it, which is more than double Killing Eve with
Yeah.
the previous record. I think you're underestimating
I
Sally
genuinely
Rooney's
think
popularity.
you're very much underestimating.
But anyway,
Sally
this is a
Rooney.
very heavy
Okay.
tangent. Let's
I
get
will
back
say,
to
I will say,
Disco. Both
I
are
will
great.
say,
Both are great.
as I will certainly say, I think I'm on stronger ground on this, that it's more known for being a Marxist piece of art than normal people. You know, there
I
are
would agree
Marxist
with that
themes in
entirely.
normal
Yeah,
people,
that's
but
true.
like
Yeah.
Disco Elysium wears them far more
Yeah,
on
I
their
wouldn't have
sleeve.
identified Normal People as like a Marxist piece of art before because that's not what it's known for.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
So therefore, it is the most
think
important
we've
piece
come
of
to a
Marxist
point-
art of the 21st century. I won. I
Don't
won
you
it.
just
I
gotta
won in
have
the
the
end.
last word, Alex.
won.
I just No, you
I
didn't.
did win. We're moving on. So yeah, it's near and dear to most people on the left. Certainly the coincidence of gaming and being on the left is very Disco Elysium heavy,
Mhm.
and we had to get around to talking about it eventually. And coming up soon, probably around about the time of our next episode. This is a bit vague because there might be some issues in our next episode. We'll talk about that at the end. But probably our next episode of this show where we talk about games, we are going to be talking about Zaum's new game, Zaum, the developers of Disco Elysium, Asterisk. We'll get into that. But the new game's coming out. Here are Zero Parades. And so I thought before we get into that, it'd be good to revisit.
Did you almost say Hopetown?
No, I didn't. I literally
Oh,
forgot
I
Hopetown
thought you did.
existed until you just mentioned that there. So I definitely didn't accidentally say that.
I thought Zalmageddon was getting in the brain there.
Ed is referring, of course, to, if you are a regular listener of the podcast, as Zalmageddon, basically the huge fallout from the release of Disco Elysium, where most of the core team were basically fired under questionable circumstances. The boss held on to the IP of Disco Elysium. It's a big mess, but as you heard us talk about in our interview with Spring from IWGB in the last episode, our kind of position on that is that, as bad as that stuff is, there's still a team of workers, people working on this game right now for another few weeks, I guess, and I'm sure they'll be doing patches and so on after. And they have just unionized. They become the UK's first unionized games company. So, I think it's worth giving their game a shot. So before that, I just want to kind of refresh myself on what Disco Elysium is and what it's like. I played it back. I didn't play it exactly when it came out. I played it the next year in 2020 during COVID. And it's a game that genuinely, I loved it. And it really genuinely helped me kind of process my emotions after the loss of the 2019 election, which I was very involved in personally. And, that was one of the worst days of my life when that result came in. And, it was difficult to work through. And this game really genuinely helped me do that. So I'll always be indebted to Disco Elysium. But I did play the original version of Disco Elysium. The original game came out in October 2019. I played it, I don't know, around April or June or May-ish. And in December that year came the final cut, which was a kind of I guess, a director's cut style thing. It had basically pretty much every spoken line of dialogue in the game was now voiced. Only some of it was voiced previously. And this was like a gargantuan effort because I think it's like literally over 1 million lines. Or like it's a colossal amount of dialogue in the game. And also a lot of the voice actors previously weren't like, frankly, that good or they weren't that professional. They got a bunch of kind of dirtbag left figures from like Chapper Trap House and unfortunately, Dasher from Red Scare, who've now become very right wing,
Mhm.
voices a character as well. They're replaced with professional actors. Well, they didn't do a terrible job. Overall, the voice acting is much better and really good. So yeah, I kind of wanted to revisit this and see what I thought. So, first thing I want to talk about is the fact that, I mean, this feels weird to even delineate, but this is definitely a Marxist game, definitely a leftist game. There are a lot of people on the internet who play this game, and apparently this fact kind of goes by. I've seen there's, plenty of video essays on YouTube, and so few of while they all admit, oh, yeah, it's definitely like a political game, they generally tend to talk about it in much less political terms. They could just generally talk about the characters and character arcs and so on. And of course, plenty of this game, it's got characters, it's got character arcs. It is overall a story about mainly the main character you play and what he goes through. But everything in this game is suffused with the politics and the ideology of it. Famously, on coincidentally, the day of the 2019 UK general election, was also the day of the Game Awards that year. And coincidence? Jeff Keighley did it. It was fucking Jeff Keighley's fault. I knew it. I knew it. Uh, yeah, Disco Elysium won a couple of awards. I think they won like RPG of the Year and Best Narrative from off the top of my head. And they went up to receive one of those awards and they famously thanked Marx and Engels for the ideology of this game on the Games Awards stage. So I guess the left mate got a little win that night. um, and
We'll call it 1-1. We'll
yeah,
call it
yeah,
1-1.
yeah. It's basically a wash, right? So everything in this game is political. Everything, even the main character. So essentially, this game, if you've not played it, one of the rare people who have not played it and don't know about it, you play as, at the start, unnamed detective who wakes up after like a crazy drink and drugs bender, having completely lost his memory. And amnesia is kind of a pretty worn out trope for video games, but I don't know. I will say that is interesting is that this game really kind of examines what it would be like to lose all your memory in a way that most games don't. Most games kind of just like all the characters kind of get over it very quickly, and it's just
Hmm.
an excuse for you to learn more about the world, basically. But this, they really like how weird and fucked up it would be that you lost all your memory and that everyone would be concerned about that and bring it up a lot. But you've your character was sent there to investigate the death of a man who is hanging off a tree. He appears to have been lynched, and how that happened. But instead of doing that, he basically went on this bender for 3 days. And now, despite the fact you've completely lost your memory and do not remember anything about who you are, who anyone else is, or even the world around you, you have to go and do this. You are joined on this quest by Kim Kutsuragi, who is another cop detective from a different precinct who basically was sent to team up with you and is obviously quite perturbed by the fact that his new partner apparently has no memory and is also just generally completely unstable. But, and I will say, I am going to, I don't know, say something controversial here, more controversial than perhaps what I
Oh.
said earlier. And I will say this: A cab does not include Kim Kitsuragi. I'm sorry. I will not say this. That man is not a bastard. He is one of the greatest characters in video games, maybe all fiction. He's such a genuinely wonderful man, and he's a policeman, and he's like genuinely a good policeman. There is one good policeman, and that's Kim Kutaragi. I'm sorry, I'm let you down, everyone, but I will not be moved from this. Kim Kutaragi for life. I would love to have
And
my
cabin brackets except Kim Kutsuragi.
accept Kim Kutaragi. I won't accept it.
Asterisk except Kim Kutsuragi.
Yeah.
Can I put Dale Cooper on there as
Yeah,
well?
he's all right. He's all right. I
Anyway.
mean, we'll get into that's a separate conversation. That's a separate
Anyway, let's not
conversation.
get into cops that we like.
Cops that
Fucking
we
hell. Let's get
like.
let's get back
I
to
know.
Disco
And
Elysium.
another one I like.
But I will say this is not, despite that, it's not a pro cop game. Although I think you could argue it's maybe not as anti cop as maybe a leftist would like. It doesn't really seems to generally. I agree with the basic concept of the police, so it does explore it a great deal. I would say that maybe of the ideology of the game, maybe the one that a leftist would have the biggest issue with is the kind of cop element of it. Because, I'll say at the end of the game, depending on how you do, you probably go back to the police force and it's like generally considered to be a good thing that worked out for you. It's not really a full takedown on the concept of police. So if you're an abolitionist, you might take issue with this game. I'll say that. That's probably the biggest kind of ideological failing of it. But as I said, everything about this game is ideological. The fact that your character has kind of lost his memory, and it turns out it becomes clear that he has like a past that he can't let go of, and that's basically why he drank himself into oblivion. And this all relates to this kind of reflects the general setting, which is a fictional world in which basically the city you're in called Revachol, the game is set in like a small district called Martinez. And this city had a communist revolution that was very brief. It only lasted about a few years, and then it was crushed by neoliberal forces, like completely obliterated by a coalition that continues to occupy the city and basically runs it kind of a bit laissez-faire, as you might imagine. They hands off, but like obviously they're not going to allow communism to take hold again. They're basically there to just stop that from happening. And the area you're in was like the landing where the coalition forces landed, and the entire game is suffused with the sense of loss that this happened. It happened like 50 years in the past in the game. And, if you follow the development of this game, you'll know it's made in Estonia. The people who made it, especially Robert Kurwitz, who is the kind of lead writer and kind of the lead on the game, basically, they're all, as you might imagine by what they said at the Game Awards, they're all on the left, and they have a real sense of kind of loss for the end of the Soviet Union. That's very clear. And the feeling of not just loss of that specific system, but the concept of hope and the idea of a better world being thrown away like that, and how terrible that is, and how you move on with your life in a world that doesn't exist in, and it feels impossible to ever build it in. That's basically what this game is about. And your character's kind of longing for this past that he cannot ever reach again is, a mirror of that same feeling. So no element of this game can be understood without its political foundations. And something that I do find quite interesting. I'm not going to go through the entire thing. Maybe one day we'll do like an ultra full episode about Disco Elysium deep
I think we
dive.
should,
We'll
yeah.
go into every
I'd
little
love
bit
to.
of it. I think that'd probably be a good idea to do that at some point. But something I do find interesting is that this game, despite as I maintain, being the most important piece of Marxist art of the 21st century, it's not evangelical. I kind of wonder how many people, kind of normies, play this game. And while they cannot avoid the fact that there's politics going on in it, how many of them come out of it thinking, I should become a Marxist. I'm convinced by Marxism. This is not really a game that is doing that. I mean, a running theme about the fact is that the communism like equals failure. Everything about communism is failure. It's suffused with failure. And so really this is a game that is a Marxist game, but it's for Marxists. It's for socialists and communists and leftists, rather than trying to capture more of them. Though I do think the popularity of this game probably has led a lot of people to like wonder what are they even talking about, and then looked into these theories and maybe some of them kind of got convinced by them. So I do think there probably is something of an upswell from from Disco Elysium, but really it's more about expressing what it's like to be on the left and to live in the world. And that's what I meant about how it helped me work through my emotions. The
Mm.
But what's something, as I said, it can be quite a depressing game. As I said, everything is suffused with the sense of loss. You play a complete wreck of a man a lot of the kind of charm and humor of it just comes from the fact that you are a policeman, you're a detective, but you can go around, talk to people, and say all sorts of crazy, weird shit. Like one of the things you can do is just repeatedly ask people for money. And this is kind of like your partner Kim suggests, or you ask for a bribe. But whenever you do it, it seems like it's more out of desperation. You're basically like begging, saying, "Hey, can you just spend some money? I really need
Mm.
some money." And also, do you know anything about the murder that happened? And
Hmm.
just the idea of a cop doing that is inherently kind of ridiculous and funny. And a cop being so like such a complete wreck of a human. That's a huge amount of this game is just exploring how totally fucked up you are. You're one of the strengths of it is how the freedom it feels like it gives you to give the weird answers. So I should say actually just the basic concept of the actual gameplay. It's an RPG, but it's also basically an adventure game that's dialogue based. You can run around, but while there is RPG and you get stats, there's no actual like combat. Everything is you almost always dialogue choices, but sometimes it's like, can you bash your way through a door? You need a high enough physical stat to be able to do that. But everything is determined by dice rolls. So even if you don't have a high stat, you could theoretically do it. You just have a low chance of doing it. That's essentially how it works. This system, I think it works really well at the beginning of the game. It gives you the opportunity to feel like you can say and do anything, and even when these checks fail, it usually fails in a amusing way. Eventually, you kind of see through it and see through that the game will basically never let you outright lose. Even when it's something really important, even if you lose the check, you'll either be given chance after chance after chance, and eventually it will just do it for you, or you failing, quote unquote, still means the game progresses. It's like, oh, you did it, you essentially achieved the same thing, but you did it in a way that's comedically inept, but you still did it. Or maybe Kim steps in and just does it for you or something. So eventually, as the game goes on, you kind of, this RPG element, I think, kind of largely falls away. You find yourself not really wanting to just stick through failure. You're just like, okay, well, I've done this enough times. I just really want to get this past. So you do a quick save and you'll try it and fail, try it and fail, and you just keep trying it until it just works because it's random.
You
I have
didn't.
I have done that on occasion,
Alex.
yeah. Sometimes when it's just a check and it's just like, I have to finish this, but like literally I finished this game like a few hours ago. I had to wanted to finish it before the podcast. So
Mm.
I did it a
I
few
would say for
times.
me, one of the things that was so special about the game was it was one of the few games that I really wasn't
Mm.
tempted to do that for at all. Like I was
Mm.
so
I think
I was so invested in the story. I believed so
mm,
much in the story that I didn't care that I failed a
I think
bunch.
when I
Like,
played it the first
but
time, I can't say I didn't ever do it, but I definitely did it less. Um,
I think.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
finish the game. That doesn't
Um,
normally happen. Sorry, Sophie. What were you
No, I
saying?
was gonna say this might be. I mean, this might be unpopular, but I think my one like only critique of like the early experience of the game, as someone who hasn't finished it, and I haven't played it all the way through. Genuinely, one of the reasons. Yeah, I know world's worst socialist, but like basically one of the reasons because of for that is that on my first ever playthrough, I failed a check wherein what's the main character's name? What's his
we're
name?
not going to say his name. His
Oh
name
yeah,
is a
'cause he's got
reveal
a
that comes partway through the game.
yeah, because he had a fake name in mind. Yeah, the character you play as tries to get his tie from the fan and he died.
Yeah.
That
Mm.
was the first time I played the game. And the second time I tried again, I was like, okay,
Sorry,
clearly that was a bit of a
just to
I was
make it
like,
clear to everyone, that's like a 1 minute into the game.
yeah, 1
Yeah.
minute in the game. So and then the second time I played the game, I believe I also died breathing in fumes from the dead body.
Oh, yeah.
So 2 times I kind of had these really unlucky deaths, but which is not a critique.
Mm,
It was quite comical, right? It was quite funny at the time, but basically what I learned, like from a gameplay perspective, like from the perspective of someone who's playing the game and is learning about how the game works,
mm,
is what I learned is that my choices have hard consequences.
yes.
So although I understand that the nature of the game is supposed to, and I've been told multiple times that, like, yeah, the game is like, it's quite goofy, it's quite silly. You can fail multiple times and still try again. Like you can always get up and try again. That's not what I learned with my first couple of playthroughs, because in both of them I died and I had to start over again, which was quite frustrating because I think my second playthrough where I died because of the fumes, that was like after spending about an hour or so in the game.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all I'm saying is, like, from the perspective of someone who's learning to play the game and learning how it works, I learned that the stakes of choices were actually very dire quite early on,
Yeah.
which really impacted my enjoyment for the rest of the game. I felt like there was a lot more like writing on passing checks or having conversations go well, that like I got quite like, ooh, I don't really know how to choose in this situation because I feel like if I choose wrong, I might fucking die again. So I think that would be my only critique, is that I'm not sure how well the game introduces to some new players
Yeah.
the idea that you can fail and it's okay, it doesn't matter. And it's just because there are quite a few high-risk choices right at the beginning of the game, which I realize why they're at the beginning of the game is because it's like, oh, well, it's the beginning of the game. What do you have to lose, right? It's fine having a couple of high-risk choices at the beginning. But in terms of teaching me as the player, I kind of ended up thinking, oh, so this is a game that I really have to like sit down and concentrate and really like try and have all my checks and balances before I attempt certain checks, is what I kind of learned. And I've since learned that it was different, but I think that's kind of my main reason why I haven't progressed that much in the game.
My take on that is I think that is what the game wants you to think. Like, I think the actual reality of the game is it's not as harsh as it's
Yeah,
giving
as
the
it
impression
seems,
of being.
yeah.
But I do think it's intentionally giving the impression of
That's
you
fair.
do need to focus, you do need to read and like understand what it is you're going to do, because bad things will happen if you don't. And most of the time, the bad thing is actually not quite as bad as it looks like it will be. But
Yeah, I think that's
I take
I
your
think
point.
that's
I think
true,
that's the
yeah.
thing, is like mistaking it for being punishing. I thought it was punishing in the beginning, and it's not actually punishing. It
Yeah,
just felt that way.
That's
I
a
mean,
really that's a
partly
good
that's the way
distinction.
I came to that conclusion this time because I have played the game before. I'm used to it. I know what's coming. You know, I know who the murderer is. I know the answers to the mysteries, right? But I when I first played this game, I
Did you play it the same
pardon?
way? Did you play it like the same way this
I mean,
time?
I played it as a communist.
Like you made this.
I will never play that game as anything but a communist. But other than that,
All right, cool. Sorry, keep going. Sorry.
but when I first played it, yeah, I think this was maybe I tried something else, but I can't remember. But I think this is like my first ever like isometric CRPG. I'd never been interested in those. I'd always found them a bit off-putting, and so that's why I didn't play it when it first came out, because I was like, this kind of game isn't really for me. It isn't the kind of game I play. But then like I heard so much more about it, and I heard about how left-wing it was, and so on. I eventually cracked during lockdown. I was like, well, I'm sitting in front of my computer anyway all day, so why not?
Fair.
So yeah, I remember I was quite. I don't.
While everyone else was in Animal
Exactly, I was at
Crossing,
Disco Elysium,
you were in Disco
like a
Elysium.
real man of the left, not like a reactionary man of Animal Crossing. Yeah, no, I was.
Top
I'd heard about the tie thing, that like I was like, yeah, you might die getting that tie, but get through it and definitely make sure you pick up the tie. So just you might have to restart a few times, and I was like, okay, again, that was quite off-putting. But I pushed through it, and I'm very glad I did. But yeah, I agree. I agree. I was very kind of like, ooh, I don't know about how to play it, and I was quite perplexed by it for quite a long time. But playing it the second time, I don't know. I think you kind of see, yeah, you definitely see that the game just lets you get, you know, it's a lot.
Which I get
Yeah,
now.
it's a
Yeah.
lot less of a game than you kind of realize. It's a lot more of a like a visual novel. I mean, I'm not saying it is a visual novel. There is still that element of gameplay and some strategy even, but it's a lot more just
I think
like,
that's fair, though.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot of reading. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I was right at the end of the game last night, like, and I really needed to go to bed, and I was like, basically the last, well, not the last. The game ends with essentially three kind of encounters that are long text bits, and I was in the first one, and I was just like, oh my god, I really need to go to bed. And I've got two more after this, I know, and they're fantastic, they're amazing. But I was like, I really want this to be over, and you can't save in the middle of the text, so I was just like, okay, well, I have to go through this and pray there's the opportunity to save before the other two, and thankfully there was. But yeah, you do have to prepare to do a lot of reading. Although the voice acting, you can just listen. It's very good. But another issue with the gameplay is that part of the thing is that you pick up all these items, like these clothes that you can put on, and you can have your character wear this kind of wacky getup, and that can be fun. But each item has stats, and they add to your ability to pass these checks I mentioned. And at some point in the game, you just have a lot of clothes, and every single check you come to, you're like quitting out the conversation so you can like go through every item to see, oh, has that got
Mm.
plus one suggestion?
Mhm.
Is this the one that any of these? How, and just putting the clothes that have the most suggestion on them. And you end up just doing that for every single one, and it gets quite tedious.
Mm.
So I think,
Bit of a risk of you.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, but again, at some point you're just like, I just want to get through these checks. I'm not really up for fucking
Yeah,
around
yeah.
anymore. So it's kind of an inevitability. I'm looking forward to Zero Parade. I hope maybe they build on like to have a bit more interesting of a kind of RPG system behind it. Because this kind of feels like
Hmm.
a bit of the first go at an RPG system that's basically conversation based.
Mm.
And then, we know there's all these disco alikes now. One came out a little while ago that's not made by anyone associated, but called, what's it? Something Ebb? You played a bit of it, Sophie, on stream, didn't you? Something obscure Ebb?
Oh,
No.
esoteric ebb.
Yeah, we
Esoteric Ebb,
talked about
that's
it.
right. I know a lot of people like that, and maybe that's interesting. I'd like to try that at some point. So basically, I'd like to see some more development of these ideas, but it's great for the first time I've seen a game like this. Maybe there are some other games like this I'm not aware of. Planescape Torment, I think that just does have combat, doesn't it? That's kind of the game people have said is
Yeah.
most like this going in the past. But I will say, despite the fact that this game has this like sense of loss, there is a lot of elements that it's depressing, like playing this wreck of a man and how he's destroyed so much of his life, and all these other characters are in states of in bad ways, in many ways. The game does have this like core of hope.
Mm.
There's a thing that happens at the end, which is like one of my favorite moments of any video game. I'm not going to spoil it, but it brings what is essentially of those three encounters I mentioned. The last one is kind of just wrapping up. The first one of those three is very bleak. It's incredibly bleak,
Mm.
especially being on the left. It's extremely bleak. And then the second one, the middle one, is this incredible moment of hope that is like was so effective. And if I described it now, like Sophie, I presume you don't know what I'm talking about since you've not got to there.
Nope.
If I described it to you, it would sound very weird, and you wouldn't really understand why it's hopeful because it's such an
Mhm.
odd thing to happen. But genuinely, it's like one of the most kind of uplifting moments in any game I've ever played.
Mm.
And like again, this is part of the reason it helped me work through my emotions at that time. And it really does have at its core of its ideology, it is still, even though it's like quite negative about how communism went as a failed project, one that was like annihilated by the forces of capitalism, it still has hope in it.
Mhm.
And it still has that core that it does think that communism is a good idea and that we should try communism, and we could do what we can to build towards it. So one of the things, this is kind of the one thing, like quest, I think I will spoil a little, is a side quest. It's basically one of the additions to the final cut. So this is one of the reasons I wanted to play this version of the game because I didn't never play this first time. The final cut comes with the full voice acting, but it also has 4 new quests, ideology quests, and these are
Mm.
fascism. You can become a fascist. You can become essentially a super capitalist, a libertarian, I guess. Basically, it's called I can't remember the exact term they use it, but they got a different name for it. There's essentially centrist, kind of neoliberal, which is actually moralist, is what it's called in the game. And then the final one is communist. And of course, I'm going to play communist. I don't know if I will ever. Some people play RPGs and they can role play as different characters. I am never going to play Disco Elysium as anything but a communist. I'm never going to see the other ideology quests outside of YouTube videos. I can't imagine I can ever play this and maintain not being a communist long enough. Those communist voice options are always the dialogue options are always going to call me, and I'm always going to say them. I tried to hold off a bit in the beginning of this one, but like soon enough, I was hitting like 40 communism. I can't do it. I can't do it. So the communism quest is you basically get your your brain entities that communicate with you across the game tell you to go that you become interested in communism and you have to go find communists and get yourself organized. So you go around the game, the NPCs, and you try and find the ones that seem like they'd be communists. There's a whole trade union. There you go, trade union boss, and he isn't one of them because he's a kind of a questionable figure. Although it's complicated in his case. Talk to some other people who seem like they're kind of left. Eventually, you get told to go to this place where you have to guess secret password to go in, and you meet these two guys who are essentially students. They're like student communists, and they are very much kind of they're like a parody of lefty communists. They have like a communist reading group, and I've got to say one of them basically looks like a guy both me and Ed know. I'll say that without getting into it further. But it's quite a familiar, but a loving kind of parody type of people that we on the left know, and they are kind of obsessed with an obscure version of communism in this world called inframaterialism, in which you are asked to go read a book about it. And inframaterialism is essentially the idea that if you believe in communism hard enough, you can affect the physical world like magic. And this world, I won't get into the details, but there are supernatural elements to it. So it's maybe not entirely outside of the realm of possibility that this may be the case, but no one takes it seriously. But at the end of this quest, you are eventually manage to get yourself inducted into the communists, and you build this tower out of matchsticks. And the idea they were doing this because this inframaterialism apparently creates a form of what they call plasm that could theoretically be allowed to keep used in architecture to keep buildings up through the mere power of belief in communism. And you saw them trying this thing at the beginning, and it fell apart almost immediately. But your guys come together and they build this tower out of matchsticks, this elaborate tower, and it stands for just a few moments and then it collapses. And this is kind of the thesis statement of the game, right? That firstly, this is actually proof that the inframaterialism works. That it stood for a moment, this thing is real, but it was fleeting and it fell apart. But even in doing that, there was joy, and even the attempt of it was worthwhile. And it can be done. It can be built up. There is still hope, even if it feels incredibly distant. And I don't know, it's just genuinely, again, a beautiful moment, even as it fell. And, again, it sounds like a kind of silly thing. Like someone maybe who isn't on the left could see this and say, and this is something that some people on the internet have said, oh, some people, you know, right wingers have played this game, realized it's good, and therefore said, well, it's not actually left wing. Look, all the communism failed. And look, these two communists are kind of ridiculous characters. But they don't realize that this game is actually saying that these characters, while they're a little ridiculous, they are right and they are good hearted, and the effort was worthwhile, and we should still try to build towards that. So this is kind of the core of hope in the game. And I really enjoyed that mission, that quest. And yeah, I mean, even though I knew everything that was going to happen in the game, I suppose except for that little quest, even though I frankly heard a lot about that anyway, it still had, getting to the end of it, still had a real emotional effect on me. So it's genuinely, I do think it's the most important piece of Marxist art of the 21st century. And I do think it's a beautiful game. And I hope that one day, the vagaries of capitalism will somehow align so that we can get a proper Disco Elysium 2. Will say, having played this game, I do kind of having understood the story a lot. I kind of see where the hooks for the sequel were. There is, I think it's pretty clear there was what the sequel would be if there was going to be a Disco Elysium 2. Maybe one day it'll happen somehow. I'd like to think so. We'll have the hope. We'll build the back-to-back matchbook tower, and we'll do it really this time. Just want to finish up with my kind of hopes for Zero Parades coming off of this. So Zero Parades is almost everyone working on Zero Parades did not actually work on Disco Elysium. There are a few staff members. There is some continuity, but almost everyone has been replaced. But that said, it's very clear that Zero Parades is cribbing off of Disco Elysium. It's at minimum inspired by Disco Elysium. And so I kind of hope, my kind of expectations are, I think it looks interesting. I've hoped for it. I think it will not be as well written as Disco Elysium. And I think that it will probably have more muddled politics than Disco Elysium. That's my kind of guess. My hope would be that it transcends those hopes. I suspect that it's going to have a very kind of metatextual story that it relates itself to the breakdown of Zaum and all the drama around it. If I was making that game, if I was making that at that studio, that's probably what the game would be about, right? So that's something I'll be looking out for. I hope an interesting new world, and yeah, maybe Simon Proseg level. I hope for like a more evolved kind of RPG system that kind of works better for over the whole game. But yeah, that's kind of my thinking on Disco Elysium. What are your disco thoughts, gang?
I mean, I want to play it. I want to play it. But yeah, I think it was kind of sold to me by a really good friend of mine who also loves the game to bits. So I remember sold it to me as like a game that you kind of want to sit down with a glass of wine with and play and sort of have that really kind of thoroughly immersive experience, like sitting down and reading a book. And I think like I've kind of stayed away from it only because I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I feel undistracted enough. And I think something I always struggled with the game is that like I love the prose, but sometimes they are quite impenetrable, especially if I'm not really like in the mood for like such a cerebral experience that it has not been very fun to play, I suppose. But like none of these are critiques. I think this is also just things that like just indicate that I just wasn't ready to engage with it at the time. But yeah, kind of like finding things quite impenetrable at the start, especially because obviously you're starting off confused because you're playing a character who's starting off confused, can be quite overwhelming in terms of I'm also confused. And also the prose are, like I said, so beautiful. Like it is genuinely just so beautifully written, so wonderfully written that it does just kind of feel like a pretty dense book at times. And sometimes I'm not really in the mood to read a particularly dense book, you know? And also I think it takes practice to read dense books and to read dense prose like that. And despite being, reader, TM, I like have set myself a whole goal of reading a lot more classics next year just because I really struggle with very dense prose and very dense text. And that goes for Marxist and not Marxist literature. I just sort of really
Marxist and bad literature. That's what you're referring to there. Marxist and bad literature.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure, whatever. Fine. I'm not gonna won't challenge that. All of our romantic-y girlies are so upset. But yeah, I think that's the thing. So I'm not played it like out of any kind of principle or any kind of like decision to avoid it. Like I have a lot of FOMO about it and I know I should play it and stuff, but it does feel very daunting for me. It's always felt very like a very daunting undertaking of something that like I feel like I've just never quite been ready to experience, but at the same time it's like I think I've just sort of blown it up a little bit too much out of proportion for myself now. But it just is quite an intimidating game.
Yeah, I think that's understandable, but I do think you have blown it out of proportion. I think there's an initial kind of, it's like not only has it got kind of weird mechanics, but it's also a completely weird and it's interesting, but it's a weird world. Trying to work out what on earth is going on. It is daunting, but I think once you kind of get past the barrier,
yeah, which I've heard that
it's a lot. It's a lot. Once you get used to it, I mean, the game is. Your friend, you mentioned a friend said it was quite goofy, and that is accurate. There's a lot of it. It's a very funny game. I made it feel, I think, sound a lot heavier than it is. There are heavy moments.
No, I mean, I don't think it is. I think it is. That's the thing. I know it's quite goofy. I know it's quite silly. I mean, I think a lot of the silliness happens in the very beginning as well, and like. And I do. I've found it. I've watched some people play it, but I've basically. It's again. I've mentioned I have the special talent for not having things spoiled for me. I don't know what happens in the game. I have no idea. Even though I've watched a lot of people play it, almost a lot of people even play late game stuff. But partially because it's kind of so impenetrable at the beginning, I don't really understand what's going on late game anyway when I have watched it. But yeah, I know it's like quite as silly and goofy as well. Which, like, loads of people have asked me to play this on stream. If any listeners who are wondering, oh, well, why haven't you played it on stream? So many people have asked me to play it on stream when they find out that I haven't played it. It is a terrible game for stream. I have tried to play it on stream once, and it is so bad for stream, just in terms of, like, it's obviously mostly listening. You don't even really get to talk. And also, like, trying to focus on being entertaining whilst also consuming what the game is trying to tell you is very difficult. Like, I do think it kind of has to take up 100% of your attention. And I just can't also imagine that it's very entertaining to watch because it's mostly narrated for you, right? You're just sort of sitting there listening. So yeah, it's one of those games where it's like, man, I'd like to play it on stream. And every time something fun happens, I'd be like, this would make such a good stream right now. But also, I cannot really experience it and actually truly sort of absorb it at the same time
Sure.
and play it on stream. I just don't think it can happen for me.
You ever read a novel on stream?
No.
Seems like
No.
some
We've read a bit of a
similar
Communist Manifesto, but that's about it. Mm.
For me, I know we're thinking we're going to do a proper full Disco Elysium episode one day, maybe after Sophie's played it as well, and we can all. So I don't want to. I need to do some prep before that. I want to be able to properly give my take on it. But I guess it's interesting that it feels like there's a hauntological theme in this game as well, but from a somewhat different angle than the liminal space Exit 8 stuff that we were talking about earlier. It feels like the seed of hope in this kind of game for me is, and in general thinking about the things that this is a historical allegory for to some extent, is there's a system in place which means that things collapse, things get destroyed. There's a series of crises and bad things happen. But it's those exact same crises which have led to the destruction of the shopping centre that we remember from when we were kids, and also from alternative ways of running an economy. Those exact same crises continue to happen, and to be honest, largely get worse as time persists. Capitalism is an incredibly unstable economic system and sort of social system more generally. The exact same thing that's caused all of this stuff to collapse continues, it persists, and that therein lies the hope. Is in those gaps of crises, in those moments where, in the possibility, and not the possibility, frankly, the certainty that there will be a series of ongoing collapses and crises going forward as a direct result of the economic system. That's where the hope comes in for me in this game. So I think that in this game and also sort of generally. So I do think the game does sort of speak to that in kind of an interesting way. I do think that is, I don't know if that's exactly the theme of the game, but it's like something that I read into the game maybe.
I think that's super true. And I mean, Sophie is just going to have to kind of wonder as what I mean by this. But this is a world that is literally being consumed by nostalgia, like literally nostalgia. And that's definitely part of it. Just like, this hauntological, like the feeling of the loss of everything's kind of, and like living in the past.
Yeah, and there's a warning in there as well about how sort of immobilizing that nostalgia can be. And I mean, nostalgia can obviously, I'm quite a nostalgic person, but you got to be conscious of nostalgia. Nostalgia can also be a breeding ground for all kinds of reactionary sentiments, but also, sometimes Disco Elysium kind of gives you permission to be a bit, I don't know if nostalgic is exactly the right word in this case, but to sort of think they're expressing their nostalgia to some extent and you're along for the ride with them. I don't know. I really rate the game. I played it maybe 4 years ago now, so it's been a little while and I haven't done a replay, so probably if we were going to do a proper episode of it, I would want to replay it as well, I think. But yeah, I mean, I would highly rate it. And the idea that it's kind of tantamount to a novel, that is certainly that's certainly true. It's certainly almost certainly the most reading I've done in a video game that's come out, let's say, post the 90s. But don't let that put you off. It is very playable. I mean, and it is very popular. It's very popular. I mean, I've just been looking up how well it's actually done. According to the New York Times last year, more than 5 million copies have been sold, and that's very good for a thing that directly appeals to people like us. It's good to see that, and I think that popular appeal does come from you can have a more wider sense. The social system creates a wider sense of a feeling of maybe things aren't quite right, maybe we've lost something, and that can be turned in all kinds of directions, but it does speak to a kind of very common experience in this day and age, and I think at multiple points in our history. So I think the appeal of it is broader than people like us, but also it is directly hits people like us. So yeah, it is a great game regardless of your politics, but if you share our politics, which I imagine you probably do,
you better
listening to this podcast, then I think this would be right up your street. I think you should definitely check it out. And tune back in when we do our full big dog summary, discuss getting all into the nitty gritty, talking all through the themes and stuff. And also tune in probably next time that we do a game episode, probably, where I imagine we'll be discussing
That's
Zero
probably the plan.
Parades. Maybe I can't
Yeah.
promise that.
There may be
We'll
timing
see.
We're
issues.
busy people. All right, get off my back.
Get off my back,
But,
chill out. I'm trying to move, okay?
Yeah, God,
Guys.
Sophie's trying to
Yeah.
move. But soon we'll be covering Zero Parades. We'll be interested to see how that goes. I'm super interested to see that. I did
Do
enjoy
you
the
feel
demo.
you've let down the podcast by failing to find any hauntological themes in Dispatch?
Well, given that I was the one that brought up hauntology in both of these other two, I feel like one of you guys should have
That's true.
stepped in
It's
there for
true.
me and
It's
saved
true.
me. But
Fair.
I feel like you've left
I
me
feel
stranded.
It's a collective failure.
alone.
Collective failure. You're right.
Hauntological themes in Dispatch.
Oh.
No, yeah, I mean the closest I could think in Dispatch, like the fact that it's like a workplace thing. I feel like there's it's telling a story about a workplace which they don't really exist like that, and it's sort of like how workplaces are portrayed in like mid-90s, early noughties sitcoms, like an Office kind of vibe, Parks and Rec kind of vibe, where everyone's super like ultimately at the end, like they're all friendly with each other and they've got really healthy relationships and everyone really likes each other, and there's just something
right?
unreal about that. Something like there's an absence to how when you compare that to reality, reality is found wanting. Like there's obviously it's not the same thing, but there's that's the closest I can see
It's
of
really
like
a genuine effort.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's good.
That is.
I did when I was thinking about analyzing this as like a workplace thing when I was thinking about the political themes. So I had this stuff ready to go. Linking it directly to the hauntology, obviously I did not have that ready to go.
Disappointing.
Well, no,
I'm so sorry, guys.
I like your attempts there, Ed.
Sorry, Derrida. Sorry, Mark Fisher.
That's what
Please
this
forgive me.
podcast is for. Just real stretches of political connections.
Yeah.
Well, on that, I think we will probably be finished. As we've alluded to, coming up in the next few episodes, we're not entirely sure what's going on. As Sophie mentioned, she's moving home. Coincidentally, I am also moving home in the next month or two. And that's going to cause a lot of upheaval and disruption. So we don't know exactly when the next episodes are going to be, but the next games episode should be Zero Parades. Probably. We'll say that. Probably Zero Parades.
Should be.
Who knows what happens in the
Should be.
future? We can't make.
We'll see.
We can't make
It's going to be a
promises.
busy month.
Depends how long the game is,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
We'll live the excitement of life and not knowing what the future will bring. But that's our plan. We're being transparent about it. We don't know if there's going to be an episode the week after you this. You might have to wait a couple more weeks or so. We'll see. We'll see. But we'll be back to regular patterns very soon. But for now, as always, we would desperately hope that you spread this podcast to your friends and family, to everyone you know. You know, just start a graffiti lifestyle and just do the logo. Take the logo from the the front of the podcast app or the app when it comes in. The logo, just do that everywhere. But also at the same time, might make sure that none of us actually did that. That we're not to blame in any way, but still do it and make sure it points to our social media. For instance, you can find us on @RedBarrelsPod on Twitter. On Blue Sky, you can find us @redbarrelspodcast.bsky.social. Me personally, you can find me @AlexDean, ALEXDUIN on Twitter, and the same name, .bsky.social on Blue Sky. Sophie, how can people badger you endlessly on the internet?
You can badger me endlessly on the internet on twitch.tv/Sofreely, SOFREELLY. I stream there once a week at the moment because it's stressful, okay? I have stuff to do.
She's got stuff going on. She's got stuff going on.
Ed?
Oh, you can find me at Not a Lemon on Blue Sky. And it's still Not a Lemon on X. And yeah, please, when you're doing your graffiti, please put graffiti in a QR code that takes you to all of those links. That would be really appreciated.
Thank
actually.
you.
That's the minimum we can
Thank you so
expect,
much.
for sure. Music, as always, is from Brilliant Drink and is brilliant as always. But that will, I think.
But it's not drink. Which is a real shame.
No. Let you down. Let me down. And there's going to be no more letting down because the episode's over. Goodbye.
Bye.